All over the ancient world, civilizations had carved out highways to move armies, goods, and ideas across huge distances. Many of these roads still exist even today. So for today's video, we're going to take a look at 15 ancient highways that still exist. Starting with 15, the Via Appia. The Via Appia is often called the Queen of Roads by the Romans. It's one of the most famous ancient highways that still survives. Built beginning in 312 BCE under the censor Appius Claudius Casus, it was designed to connect Rome with southern regions in Italy. Originally stretching from Rome to Capua, it was later extended to the port city of Brindisi on the Adriatic Sea, and it covered a total distance of more than 560 kilometers. Roman surveyors laid out the road in nearly straight lines, cutting through hills and buildings, over marshes, and through causeways. The roadbed was constructed with multiple layers, a foundation of heavy stones, topped with smaller stones, gravel, and finally large paving blocks, fitted tightly together. This design allowed drainage, durability, and some smooth travel, which enabled carts, soldiers, and merchants to move efficiently. It allowed troops to be deployed quickly to southern Italy during the Samnite Wars and later supported trade and communication with the Greek colonies and ports. Along the routes, the towns grew, inns were established, and markets thrived. It was more than just a road, it was kind of like an artery of Roman control, which helped to tie the Italian peninsula together. Sections near Rome today, known as the Via Appia Antica, have been preserved as a historic site. Walking or cycling there, visitors can see stretches of ancient paving stones flanked by tombs, aqueducts, and ruins. Although modern highways now handle most traffic, these remnants provide a direct connection to the world of antiquity. Despite nearly 2,300 years of weathering, repurposing, and urban growth, the core structure remains. Number 14. The Royal Road of the Persian Empire. The Royal Road of the Persian Empire was one of the earliest long-distance highways. It was built during the reign of Darius I in the 5th century BCE. Stretching about 2,700 kilometers, it connected the empire's capital at Susa in modern Iran with Sardis near the Aegean coast of modern Turkey, which linked key regions of the huge Achaemenid state. The purpose of the road was to improve communication and control across the empire, which at its height stretched from the Indus Valley to the Mediterranean. Relay stations with fresh horses were placed at intervals, which allowed royal couriers to travel the full length in just about 7 days, which was a staggering speed compared to the 90 days it might take an ordinary traveler on foot. This network was an essential part of the Persian system, which enabled decrees, tax information, and military orders to move quickly across huge distances. It was paved in some sections, leveled in others, and supported by bridges and way stations. Herodotus, the Greek historian, described the royal road with admiration, noting the reliability of the couriers. Neither snow, nor rain, nor heat, nor darkness of night prevents these couriers from completing their appointed course with all speed. This description later inspired the famous motto of the United States Postal Service. Sections in Turkey today and Iran follow routes that modern highways still trace, which shows the endurance of the original alignment. Even after the fall of the Persian Empire, the Royal Road continued to serve as a trade route under the Seleucids, the Romans, and the Byzantines. Though it has been transformed and overlaid by later systems, the Royal Road is a living part of the Middle Eastern landscape, still carrying travelers as much as it did 2,500 years ago. Number 13. The Amber Road. The Amber Road wasn't a single paved highway in the Roman or Persian sense, but rather a network of ancient trade routes that connected the Baltic Sea with the Mediterranean. Its origins stretch back to prehistory, with evidence of amber trade dating as far back as the Neolithic period, but it became most important during the Bronze Age and continued into the classical world. Amber, fossilized tree resin, which is prized for its beauty and used in jewelry, was the main commodity carried along this route. The core of the Amber Road linked the Baltic coast in areas that are today Lithuania, Latvia, and Poland, with Central Europe and eventually Italy and Greece. One of the most prominent paths passed through present-day Poland, the Czech Republic, and Austria, following river valleys that made overland travel easier. Archaeological finds of Baltic amber in Mycenae in Greece, Etruscan tombs in Italy, and even in Egypt show just how far this material traveled. Roman merchants traveled north as far as the Baltic to secure supplies, and Roman writers recorded the importance of this trade. The Roman historian Tacitus mentioned amber in his accounts of the Germanic tribes, and Pliny the Elder described how it was collected and valued. In Rome, amber was not only used for jewelry, but for carvings, figurines, and even as a supposed medical remedy. Though the Amber Road was never paved or formally built like the Via Appia, it functioned as a true highway of its time. Archaeological evidence of tools, pottery, and coins found along the path confirm this sustained use. Today, in Poland, the route roughly corresponds to major north-south transport corridors. In Austria, sections overlap with routes through the Alps that are still heavily traveled. And cultural heritage trails now promote the history of the Amber Road, with museums and exhibits in cities like Gdansk and Vienna. Number 12. The Inca Road System. The Inca Empire, which stretched across the Andes from present-day Colombia to Chile, created one of the most extensive highway networks of the ancient world. Known as the Capacnan, or the Great Road in Quechua, it consisted of more than 40,000 kilometers of interconnected roads and trails. Built in the 15th and early 16th centuries, the system linked high mountain passes, coastal deserts, and fertile valleys which united these regions of the empire. The main spine of the system ran north to south along the Andes with parallel routes along the coast and connections reaching into the Amazon basin. Roads were often paved with stone, particularly in important or heavily traveled sections, while in other areas they were compacted earth. In mountainous areas, the Incas built stairways, retaining walls, and suspension bridges made of woven plant fibers. The Capacnan was not open to all travelers. Its primary function was administrative and military. State official messengers and armies used it to move quickly across the empire. A system of relay runners known as chaquis carried messages and goods along the roads, with relay stations spaced about every 6 to 9 kilometers. Storehouses and way stations were also built along the roads, providing supplies and lodging. Parts of the road system are still visible and usable today. In Peru, sections near Cusco and Machu Picchu are popular with hikers, and most famously the Inca Trail to Machu Picchu, which follows part of the original path. In Bolivia, Ecuador, and Chile, stretches of the road remain in rural use, often forming the backbone of local transport routes. In 2014, UNESCO designated the Capacnan as a World Heritage Site. The Inca Road still exists, not only as physical remains, but as a living route used by local communities for trade and travel. Number 11. The Silk Road Routes. The Silk Road is one of the most famous ancient trade networks in history. While not a single paved highway, it was a series of interconnected routes that linked China with the Middle East and ultimately Europe. Originating during the Han Dynasty in the 2nd century BCE, the Silk Road facilitated the movement of silk, spices, precious metals, and other goods, but it was also a highway for ideas and technologies. The main overland route ran from Chang'an across the deserts of Central Asia through cities like Samarkand and Bukhara, then over the Iranian plateau and into Anatolia, finally connecting with ports and Mediterranean trade networks. Branch routes did extend south towards India and north across the steppes. The name Silk Road was coined much later in the 19th century, but it still captures the trade that made the network famous. Caravanserai, or roadside inns, were built at regular intervals across Central Asia to house merchants, their animals, and guards, and roads were marked and maintained in certain sections, with the river crossings and mountain passes equipped with bridges or paved stretches to make the travel easier. Many portions of the Silk Road still exist today. Some survive as paved roads which follow the ancient alignments, and others are as visible tracks across the deserts. In Uzbekistan, the historic city of Samarkand and Bukhara retain their caravanserai and bazaars. In China, sections of the Hexi Corridor, once a crucial stretch of the Silk Road, are still in use. In 2014, UNESCO designated significant stretches of it as a World Heritage Site under the title Silk Roads, the Routes Network of Chang'an-Tianshan Corridor. That recognition shows the role the Silk Road had as an ancient highway system that still resonates today. That shows how highways could be more than just infrastructure. They can be cultural arteries, binding distant civilizations together across thousands of kilometers. Number 10. Watling Street. Watling Street is one of the most enduring highways of Roman Britain. Originally a track used by the Britons, it was paved and expanded by the Romans after their conquest in the 1st century CE. The road ran from Dover on the southeastern coast through London and onto Shropshire, forming one of the backbone routes of Roman Britain. Later extensions did carry it farther north towards Chester. The Roman construction of Watling Street followed the typical method of layered roadbeds, a foundation of large stones covered by gravel and topped with tightly fitted paved stones in key sections. The result was a durable surface that allowed for the movement of troops, supplies, and trade goods. Watling Street did play an important role in Roman administration. Troops marched along it to suppress uprisings, including the famous rebellion led by Boudicca in 60 to 61 CE, and it also connected key ports with the interior, which facilitated trade and military logistics. Along the route, towns like Verulamium, near modern St. Albans, and Londinium, London, grew into important centers. Anglo-Saxon kingdoms adopted it as a boundary marker. During the Middle Ages, it continued to serve as a key route. Pilgrims, merchants, and armies all traveled along it, and by the 18th and 19th centuries, parts of it had become turnpike roads, and in the 20th century it formed the basis for sections of Britain's A2 and A5 highways. Today, drivers traveling from Dover to London on the A2 or from London to Shrewsbury on the A5 are following the course of this Roman highway. It is a clear example of an ancient highway that's never really truly disappeared. Its alignment has guided transport across Britain for nearly 2,000 years, from Roman soldiers to modern commuters. Number 9. The Via Egnatia. The Via Egnatia was one of the most important Roman highways in the eastern Mediterranean, which linked the Adriatic with Byzantium, or modern Istanbul. Built beginning in the 2nd century BCE, it stretched more than 1,100 kilometers across what is now Albania, North Macedonia, Greece, and Turkey. It crossed the interior of the Balkans and it reached towards the eastern provinces of the Roman Empire. The Via Egnatia was constructed using the same engineering methods as the Via Appia. Surveyors laid out straight sections where possible, and the roadbed was layered with large stones, gravel, and paved slabs to withstand the heavy use. Bridges and causeways were built to cross the rivers and marshy ground, while milestones marked distances and way stations provided services. It connected Rome to its eastern provinces, allowing the movement of armies, trade goods, and information. And during the Roman civil wars, Julius Caesar and Pompey both used the Via Egnatia to move their troops. Later in the Byzantine period, it remained a vital artery, used by emperors and merchants. The Apostle Paul is believed to have traveled along parts of it during his missionary journeys, described in the New Testament. Today, in Albania, stretches of the ancient paving stones do survive in the countryside. In Greece, the modern Egnatia Odos Highway, built in the late 20th and early 21st centuries, deliberately follows much of the ancient alignment. Remains like bridges and milestones are scattered along the way, and that offers glimpses into its Roman past. Number 8. The Grand Trunk Road. The Grand Trunk Road is one of the oldest and major highways in Asia, with routes stretching back more than 2,000 years. It runs for over 2,400 kilometers across South Asia, connecting Bangladesh, India, Pakistan, and Afghanistan. Its history as a trade and military route date back to at least the Mauryan Empire in the 3rd century BCE, when Emperor Chandragupta established a roadway to link his capital Pataliputra in modern-day Patna, India, with the far northwest of his realm. The road was later expanded and improved by successive rulers, including the Mughals in the 16th century. Emperor Sher Shah Suri, who ruled northern India in the 1540s, is credited with transforming the Grand Trunk Road into a true imperial highway. He ordered the construction of mile markers, rest houses, and wells along the route, making it one of the most advanced highways of its time. It links cities like Lahore, Delhi, Kanpur, Patna, and Kolkata, serving as the backbone of communication and commerce. Under the British colonial administration, the Grand Trunk Road was further modernized, with sections paved and bridges built, and it became a key artery for trade and military movement. Rudyard Kipling famously described it as the River of Life, capturing its role as the central channel of South Asia's cultural exchanges. Today, the road remains in active use, though it has been upgraded into modern highways in many sections. In India, it forms part of National Highway 19, while in Pakistan it corresponds to sections of National Highway 5. In Bangladesh, it runs through Dhaka and continues eastwards. Trucks, buses, and cars now travel the same corridors that once carried caravans of merchants, armies of emperors, and pilgrims heading to sacred sites. For over 2 millennia, it's served empires, colonial powers, and independent nations alike. Even as it's been widened, paved, and modernized, this alignment reflects decisions made in antiquity. It facilitated the blending of languages, religions, and traditions across South Asia. Its survival today as both a modern road and an ancient legacy makes it one of the most remarkable highways in world history. Moving on to number 7, the King's Highway. The King's Highway is one of the oldest known highways in continuous use, with origins stretching back more than 3,000 years. Running north to south through the Levant, it connected Egypt with Mesopotamia by way of the Sinai Peninsula, modern-day Jordan, and Syria. In antiquity, it served as a crucial trade, military, and pilgrimage route, and remarkably, much of the course is still traveled today. The earliest references to it appear in ancient Egyptian records and in the Hebrew Bible. It's described as the road taken by traders and armies moving between the great empires of the Near East. Because of its location east of the Jordan River, it was a lifeline for the kingdoms of Moab, Ammon, and Edom. These small states often taxed or controlled the traffic along the road, leading to frequent conflict. The highway was more than just a road, it was part of a system of trade routes that linked the Red Sea with the Fertile Crescent. Caravans carried frankincense and myrrh from Arabia northward, while grain, wine, and olive oil moved south. And when the Roman Empire took control of the region in the 1st century CE, the King's Highway was incorporated into their network of provincial roads. They paved sections of it, built milestones, and established way stations to support administrative travel, and the road became part of the Via Nova Traiana, commissioned by Emperor Trajan around 106 CE. It gave the Romans secure passage through Jordan, and it linked their eastern frontier defenses with the Mediterranean. During the Byzantine period, the highway gained new significance as a pilgrimage route. Christian pilgrims from across the empire traveled along it to reach holy sites in Jerusalem and Mount Nebo. Under Islamic rule from the 7th century onward, it remained vital. Caliphs and later sultans maintained stretches of the road, building caravanserais, wells, and fortresses. And crusaders in the 12th century also recognized its value. They constructed castles like Karak and Shobak to control movement along the route. Over the centuries, it shifted in form and function, from a Bronze Age trade route to a Roman imperial highway. Few roads like this in the world can claim such longevity. Number 6. The Via Augusta. The Via Augusta was the longest Roman road in Hispania, the Iberian Peninsula, running more than 1,500 kilometers along the Mediterranean coast, from the Pyrenees to Cadiz. It was built in the late Republic and early Imperial periods, and it was named after Emperor Augustus, who consolidated Roman power in Spain. It had its roots in earlier Iberian and Carthaginian trade paths, but the Romans formalized it into a true highway. Beginning at the Pyrenean Pass, connecting Spain with Gaul, which is modern France, it passed through key Roman settlements. It followed the coastal plains and river valleys, which ensured easier travel compared to Spain's mountainous interior. The road itself was laid in layers, a foundation of stones, a middle layer of compacted gravel, and a paved surface of large stone slabs in important sections. Milestones were placed at intervals of 1 Roman mile, that's about 1.48 kilometers, many of which survive. For the Roman legions, it was crucial for moving troops. For merchants, it provided a secure and reliable route to transport goods. But the road also facilitated cultural integration. Roman urban life flourished in cities along this route, where theaters, amphitheaters, and forums were all constructed. In the modern era, Spain's infrastructure has often mirrored its path. The AP7 motorway, one of the country's busiest highways, follows the same coastal corridor, and archaeological remains here can still be visited. Stretches of stone paving near Tarragona, preserved Roman bridges like the ones at Martorell near Barcelona, and milestones scattered throughout Catalonia, Valencia, and Andalusia. It was the backbone of Roman Spain, shaping its cities, economy, and culture, and its survival today in both physical remains and modern networks shows the lasting impact of Rome's infrastructure. Number 5. The Via Maris. The Via Maris, meaning Way of the Sea in Latin, was one of the most important highways of the ancient Near East. Stretching from Egypt in the south to Mesopotamia in the north, it followed the Mediterranean coastline through what is now Israel, Lebanon, and Syria, before connecting inland to the great empires of Mesopotamia. Along with the King's Highway further east, the Via Maris was one of the two principal arteries that bound together the civilizations of the ancient Near East. The origins of it go back thousands of years, long before it acquired a Latin name under Roman administration. Its path was dictated by geography, the Mediterranean Sea on one side, the deserts on the other. The coastal plain and Jezreel Valley provided a natural passage between Africa and Asia, making the Via Maris the most direct route. In ancient Egyptian texts, references appear to military campaigns along the road. Pharaohs like Thutmose III marched northwards on the Via Maris to confront rivals in Canaan and Syria, and the road's control was vital, since whoever commanded it effectively controlled trade and communication between Egypt and the Levant. It was also deeply entangled in biblical history. The book of Isaiah refers to the way of the sea in Isaiah chapter 9 verse 1, a phrase understood by scholars to reference this very highway. During the Iron Age, it was connecting the small kingdoms of Israel, Judah, and Phoenicia, and Aram with powers like Assyria and Babylon. It was a conduit not only for armies but for culture. The Persians, when they controlled the Near East, improved the road and integrated it into their communications network. Later, Alexander the Great's armies used it in their conquest of the Levant, and under the Seleucids and Ptolemies, it remained essential for trade and military control. Pilgrims traveling to Jerusalem would often follow the course, and for Jews it was one of the routes by which they returned to the Holy City. Later, under Christianity, the road carried pilgrims towards the places associated with Jesus and the Apostles. Under Islam, it remained part of the broader system connecting Egypt with Syria and Arabia. Today, much of it still exists, though overlaid by modern highways. In Israel, for example, Highway 2 and Highway 4 trace its route along the coast, while sections of Highway 65 follow the inland branch through the Jezreel Valley. It's been used for thousands of years, regardless of who ruled the land. Empires rose and fell, but the road remained. Even today, travelers and goods move along the same path. Number 4. The Appian Way Extension. While the Via Appia is the most famous Roman road, its later extension, the Via Traiana, is another ancient highway that still exists. Commissioned by Emperor Trajan in the early 2nd century CE, the Via Traiana provided a faster, more efficient route. Whereas the original wound through the hills, this one took a flatter path along the Adriatic coast, cutting days off your journey. Construction began around 109 CE. Trajan, one of Rome's most ambitious emperors, sought to consolidate the empire's infrastructure. The project was financed directly by the emperor, as commemorated by inscriptions on the surviving milestones and monuments, and in particular the Arch of Trajan in Benevento still records the construction of the road as one of the emperor's achievements. Surveyors charted a straight course wherever possible, and the roadbed was laid in multiple layers. Drainage ditches lined the road while bridges spanned rivers and streams. The bridge at Canosa de Puglia, for example, is a surviving example of the road's strength. In use, it quickly surpassed the older Via Appia as the preferred route to Brindisi, Rome's gateway to the Eastern Med, and merchants carrying goods to and from Greece, Asia Minor, and the Levant used it. Roman officials on their way to govern provinces traveled it, and armies marched along it when campaigning abroad. Today, large sections of it do still exist, some preserved as archaeological sites and others that were incorporated into modern roads. Roman bridges, though weathered, continue to stand, which shows the engineering skill of the original builders. By choosing the most efficient path across Apulia, the Romans established a route so practical that it had remained useful for centuries. Though overshadowed in fame by the Via Appia, the Via Traiana was in many ways the superior road. Its milestones, bridges, and paving slabs remain visible reminders of how a highway built in antiquity is still shaping the way people and goods move across southern Italy today. Number 3. The Great Wall Road System. So when most people think of the Great Wall of China, they imagine a stone fortification that stretches across the mountains and deserts, but alongside the wall itself ran a network of roads and paths that functioned as one of the largest highway systems of the ancient world. Built, maintained, and expanded over centuries, this system allowed troops, supplies, and officials to move quickly along China's northern frontier. In many ways, it was less a single road and more a coordinated highway grid tied directly to the wall's defense. The earliest versions of these routes date back to the Warring States period. That's about the 5th to 3rd centuries BCE. These walls were linked by dirt and gravel roads that allowed garrisons to patrol, send messages, and move reinforcements. After the unification of China under the Qin dynasty in the 3rd century BCE, Emperor Qin Shi Huang ordered the walls of the northern states to be joined and expanded. The Han dynasty then took the system to new levels. As the empire expanded into Central Asia, the road system became part of the infrastructure supporting the Silk Road. Some sections were paved with tamped earth or stone, while others were simply cleared paths kept wide and level. Relay stations known as yijian were built at regular intervals, which provided fresh horses, food, and shelter. There was a postal system, too, that ensured news could travel rapidly from the frontier to the capital, and in later centuries, particularly under the Ming dynasty, the road system was further formalized. Highways were wide enough for carts and troops with drainage systems and watchtowers. Military units could march swiftly between fortresses, while civilian traders under supervision used the roads for local commerce. Basically, the importance of this road system extended beyond defense. It integrated northern China into a unified economic sphere. The roads helped project Chinese culture outward, supporting migration and settlement in frontier zones. Many sections of it still exist near Beijing. The ancient flagstone paths alongside restored wall sections can still be walked. In Gansu, remnants of tamped earth causeways stretch across the desert landscapes. The Great Wall is rightly celebrated as a wonder of the world, but its associated roads deserve equal recognition. Without them, the wall couldn't have been maintained or defended. Though weathered, buried, or paved over, the Great Wall road system still exists, shaping movement across northern China just as it did in antiquity. Number 2. The Via Flaminia. The Via Flaminia was one of the most important Roman highways. Built in 220 BCE by Gaius Flaminius, a Roman censor and statesman, running from Rome to Ariminum, which is modern Rimini, on the Adriatic coast. It provided the principal northern exit from Rome and was a lifeline for the expansion of the Roman Republic. The road began in Rome, crossed the Tiber through the still-standing Milvian Bridge, and then threaded its way through the Apennine Mountains. To overcome this rugged terrain, Roman engineers built tunnels, bridges, and viaducts, some of which still remain functional today. The Furlow Pass, this is a gorge in Umbria, contains tunnels carved directly through solid rock in the 3rd century BCE, later enlarged by Emperor Vespasian in the 1st century CE. This tunnel is still visible and usable. It's one of the oldest highway tunnels in existence. Under Augustus, the first Roman emperor, the Via Flaminia was extensively restored as part of his infrastructure renewal program. Later emperors continued to maintain it, which ensured that it remained a key link between Rome and the Adriatic. Pilgrims traveling to Rome from northern Italy and beyond often followed its path. Inns, monasteries, and small towns grew up along the road, many of which still exist. Portions of it were also incorporated into a broader pilgrimage route, linking Canterbury, France, and Switzerland to Rome. In Umbria and Marche, visitors can walk on the original Roman paving stones, while Roman bridges like the Ponte Augusto and Narni remain standing. The modern Strada Statale 3, or the SS3, follows much of the same course. It continues to serve the same function it did in antiquity, linking central Italy with the Adriatic coast. Number 1. The Sacbeob, the Maya White Roads, Mexico and Central America. When we think of great ancient highways in the world, our minds will often turn first to the stone causeways in Rome, the imperial post roads of Persia, or the caravan tracks of the Silk Road. Yet, across the Atlantic in the dense forests and dry plains of Mesoamerica, another remarkable network of highways was built by the Maya civilization. Known as the Sacbeob, from the Yucatec Maya words sac, meaning white, and be, meaning road. These white roads were among the most sophisticated overland transport systems of the pre-Columbian Americas. Their raised, plastered surfaces stretched for miles through the jungles, over swamps, and across rocky terrain, physically and symbolically uniting one of the world's most advanced ancient civilizations. The Sacbeob were both practical and symbolic. Practically, they connected city to city, temple to temple, and community to community. In a region with no navigable rivers and where seasonal rains could transform the ground into a marsh, elevated causeways ensured year-round travel. Symbolically, they represented lines of power and cosmology. In Maya thought, roads were not just physical connections, but sacred paths that linked the human world with the realm of the gods. Among the most extraordinary examples is the Kobayaksuna Sakbe in the Yucatan Peninsula. It was built around 600 to 800 CE. This causeway stretches for more than 100 kilometers, making it the longest known ancient road in the Americas. Surveys show that it was a raised embankment several meters wide with sections elevated up to a meter above the surrounding terrain. It ran arrow straight through dense forest, wetlands, and rocky ground connecting Coba, one of the most powerful Maya centers of its time, with Yaxuna, a smaller but strategically located settlement. Thousands of workers must have been mobilized to clear the jungle, quarry the limestone, haul the rubble, and spread the plaster across the road's surface. Why would Coba invest so much in a road to Yaxuna? Well, scholars suggest multiple motives. Strategically, it lay on routes leading toward Chichen Itza, which was rising as a rival power. By linking Coba to Yaxuna, Coba may have sought to project influence and stake a claim over territory. Economically, the road provided a direct channel for goods like salt, obsidian, and agricultural produce. Symbolically, it was a statement of dominance. A gleaming white line across the landscape, it announced Coba's reach and authority. The engineering of the Sakbayob varied with the terrain, but it followed some consistent principles. First, the ground was cleared and leveled. In swampy areas, embankments were built high enough to stay dry during rainy seasons. In rocky areas, the rubble was used to fill gaps. Retaining walls of stone lined the sides, which hold the fill in place. And finally, the surface was capped with a layer of crushed limestone plaster. This final layer gave the road its white color and a hard, smooth surface that resisted erosion. Widths do vary. Some of them were modest, 3 or 4 meters across, sufficient for foot traffic and porters. Others were monumental, 6 to 10 meters wide, built as ceremonial avenues as much as transport roads. Unlike Roman roads, they weren't designed for wheeled carts. The Maya had no draft animals and used the wheel only for toys. Instead, they facilitated foot travel with porters carrying loads on their backs. The raised and plastered surface made walking easier and faster, especially through the forest and uneven ground. Archaeological discoveries reinforce the economic significance of these roads. Along them, archaeologists have found shrines, altars, and small structures, maybe used as way stations or checkpoints. At intersections, there are often stone platforms which may have served as marketplaces or ritual sites. Aerial photography and more recently LiDAR technology have revealed long, straight lines beneath the jungle canopy, which are clear signatures of ancient roads. And in some villages in the Yucatan, locals still walk on sections of Sakbayob as footpaths. In some places, modern roads follow their paths, just as in Europe, modern highways trace Roman alignments. But why do the Sakbayob matter so much? Because they challenge our assumptions about infrastructure in the pre-Columbian Americas. Without the wheel, horses, or oxen, many outsiders assumed that large-scale road networks couldn't have existed. The Maya prove otherwise. Their roads were suited to their environment and their needs. They were durable, engineered with skill, and capable of linking huge territories. For travelers today, the Sakbayob provide one of the most tangible connections to the ancient Maya. Walking on one, you see the same horizon lines, feel the same hard plaster underfoot, and imagine the same processions of priests, merchants, and laborers who walked here 1,000 years ago. In the ruins of Coba, the great Sakbe stretches arrow straight into the jungle, disappearing into the trees. This is a reminder of a civilization that built highways not just for commerce, but for ceremony, politics, and cosmic meaning. 2,000 years after their creation, the Maya white roads still exist. Silent, enduring, luminous in stone and in memory.